Could that portray something scary coming? Whatever it is, we lost about $75,000 just like that. People are sending me emails. They're saying, dude, JM Bullion and APMEX, they're shut down. My operations calls me and says, dude, we've already done 90,000 ounces in orders. You are already 25,000 ounces exposed to the market. So I said, shut it down. Refiner said, we're going to go bankrupt. Cost of hedging is going up so fast, and we keep getting margin called, we're going to get stopped out. We can't take any more business. A dealer like mine is paying 300% more for the hedging costs, but the premiums are collapsing and we can't hedge that. We're getting eviscerated by holding $100 million worth of inventory where the premium just fell across the board on all of it. And in an industry where you don't make very much, I have never seen anything like this ever in 36 years. It was the perfect storm. For 2 weeks, I did not leave that place. I didn't leave the room that I was in as my kids were out on the beach and everything. And for 2 weeks, I was doing interviews and taking phone calls 18 hours a day. People were freaking out.
So the second question, he was talking about Wall Street silver during that whole thing. Probably 3, 4 years ago, you and I were talking about this. I remember you telling me back then how dangerous that was, how you could have went out of business trying to hedge that.
Typically so the market is open 24/7. Typically the market sleeps. When I say typically, you now have this stupid gold 1 ounce contract 24/7 by the COMEX that's backed by nothing, 6 p.m. Eastern Friday night to 6 p.m. Eastern Sunday night. And so what we will do for our orders over the weekend is we will go long a certain amount of gold and silver contracts in order to hedge what we're doing, right? And in case the price busts out over the weekend and opens up much higher. I remember I was on vacation. This is actually how I ended up in Florida. Minnesota lost its mind during the pandemic, and my parents had rented a house, and in Florida, my dad calls me and says, listen, I'm bored as hell. He says, by the way, we just bought a condo in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. We're coming home, though. I need to come home, and why don't you bring your family down here? You can have it for 2 weeks. So we did, and we let our kids bring a couple friends, and I remember landing in Florida and reading in the newspaper that Governor Walz raised income taxes to 10.5% on the top bracket after it felt like East Germany before the wall went down. I mean, back then it was the COVID, everything was shut down, everyone was wearing masks. You couldn't go or do anything. I land in Florida after reading that. I'm like, I called my dad. I'm like, give me your real estate agent's phone number. I'm going to go look at houses. And I did. Went there for a vacation, left with the house. But it's a 2-week deal. And this is at the very, very end of January. And we go to this place. And this is the weekend of Silver Squeeze. For 2 weeks, I did not leave that place. I didn't leave the room that I was in, basically, as my kids were out on the beach and everything. And for 2 weeks, I was doing interviews and taking phone calls 18 hours a day. People were freaking out. I'm taking phone calls, I'm placing everything. But that first weekend, people are sending me emails. They're saying, dude, JM Bullion and APMEX, they're shut down. They're not taking any business over the weekend. I couldn't figure it out. So I called my operations and I say, you see this? They're like, yeah. And they're like, because there are rumors that the price will skyrocket on Monday. This is late Friday afternoon. And so we're like, here's what we'll do. We'll still take business. Let's go long much more than we normally do. So we went long, I think, 11 contracts, which would be 65,000 ounces. So I figure we're safe, right? As long as we don't do more than 65,000 ounces over the weekend, we're covered. So I get a call from my operations Saturday night. I'm working 18 hours a day, right? I'm supposedly on vacation. and doing interviews with Wall Street Silver back then. And my operations calls me, says, "Dude, we've already done 90,000 ounces in orders. You are already 25,000 ounces exposed to the market." So I said, shut it down. Shut it down. And we did. We didn't take any more orders until Monday morning. When Monday morning opened, it gapped up, but we were able to get it at about a $3 increase, that which we had already covered. So in essence, we lost about $75,000 just like that when the market opened up, because we were overextended past what we were able to hedge. So it's important that people understand that this market is very risky. People think, well, I can just cancel that order. He's got the shit anyway. Yeah, but when we have it, we have to hedge it because of reasons just like this. And you go out of business if you're on the wrong side of a market that moves against you. So it's a game where risk is evenly displaced amongst the purchaser and the seller. But I think ultimately where we are going, and if you look at the deliveries that we're seeing all around the globe at a fever pace, these people are the most well-informed traders in the world. They know where this is going. If silver was so indicative of its price in terms of its value, why did China buy more in the first quarter than in the history of the country ever? And why are we seeing deliveries into the billions every single month? Every single month. And who took possession of 39 million ounces in February and drove out of COMEX 3 million pounds of silver, $4 billion? Where's it going? Who's doing it? These people know where this ultimately goes. And so, yeah, that is what happened. And you could, if you were on the wrong side of that, let's say I didn't hedge it at all and the market opened up, now on 90,000 ounces times, call it $4, I'm out 360,000 like that. And that's how fast things can move against you. And, this is why the last several months, and in particular December, January, were so risky to this industry. I'm sure a lot of people closed their doors forever as a result of it.
That's why I love having you on, as a guest, because the average person cannot fathom that type of stuff. When I thought back then when they stopped taking orders, I thought for a completely different reason. I had no idea it's because of all this. But yeah, that
You
is
sell it at a certain price on Saturday morning, and then
yeah.
when the price is frozen, right? Let's say it closes at $30 or 31, it almost got to. It's closed, right? And everyone's saying it's going to open at 50, at 60, whatever it is. If it did, and you're not hedged, and you just sold 25,000 ounces at 31, and it opens at 60, and you haven't even got paid yet, you got problems, man.
Did you see how much gold China bought this month?
Central banks who bought 16 tons the first quarter, and that's what they told us, which they said it's the largest first quarter ever, and they said, yeah, we bought 16 tons, and the World Gold Council said, you're lying bastards, you bought 15 times that, you bought 244 tons, we see the import-export numbers. China says that they bought 10 tons. But Goldman Sachs said, no, you acquired more than 48 tons via the London OTC market, so you're underreporting it by 4.8 times. And so they claim, and that's just China. That's not, if the People's Liberation Army buys it, they're not going to report it. It's all voluntary anyway, if a proxy bank buys it. But the China Central Bank officially, that's the other part, added 15 tons in June for the 20th consecutive month. But that's the central bank, not the amount that they show importing or going into the country.
Yeah.
Bottom line is that central banks are lying about it and lying in a massive way, saying, oh, no, we only bought 16 tons the first quarter. No, you bought 15 times more than that, the largest amount ever. And that's something to keep in mind, too, is that these countries are not being forthright about how much they're accumulating. That also should help you understand how important it is to accumulate before the market figures it out. And you do that by not being honest about it, because if everyone knew how important it was for the central banks to accumulate gold and silver, they may think of it differently. One of the things people give me shit about, Jordan, is that, well, why isn't it all leaving COMEX, all these deliveries? If you were the U.S. government and you're Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who is the head of the Exchange Stabilization Fund, who has the right to, if for national security, to bring things in without congressional approval. Silver isn't a critical mineral. It is national security, and he could argue that gold is too. He's a gold bug. He understands it better than most. It was his largest holding when he ran the hedge fund. He's a self-proclaimed gold bug. So what if he said gold and silver for the United States are national security? Who brought in $20 billion in gold in February? Who brought $14 billion in last month? Who's been bringing in billions of silver every month? Where did $4 billion, 3 million pounds worth go in February? There's been some taken off every month, and more stays in the facility. Now, if you were the U.S. government, this is all hypothetical, and you had the ability to print money, suppress the price through the commercial banks, and stand for delivery through the commercial banks, keeping arm's length so the market doesn't know who's doing it, and then leaving it at the COMEX where everyone says, well, why isn't it leaving? Because if they're the U.S. government, do you care if you take possession of it right away? Or do you think the COMEX is going to steal from the U.S. government? No. Even if they went force majeure, they're going to get theirs. And so they could leave it in there, fuel more speculation that it's just the banks playing with each other. But what if it really is the U.S. government under the guise of national security at using the proxy banks to accumulate for them, suppress the paper, stand for delivery on the physical for national security, and quietly siphon it away through deliveries over time? I don't know, it seems that way to me. All I can tell you is that the central banks are the most well-informed players in the world, and whoever is standing for delivery and the central banks buying it and lying about it really is all people should need to know as far as I'm concerned.
Here, can you see the screen?
Yeah, I have that
Yeah.
same chart. And to me, what I
Yeah.
find when are they buying? They're buying as the price is getting destroyed.
Yeah. 173 tons.
As the price is
Um,
getting destroyed.
yeah.
Now that chart, go back to that for a minute. That chart, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars to the left of the far right one, that's full year. This is
Yep.
just half a year. So in a half of a year when the price got its ass kicked, well, China said, thank you very, very much. We'll just continue to buy. But that's what the central banks are doing, and that's what someone here in the United States is doing. It's just not getting any attention. And it's the one thing no one is asking, who's standing for delivery? You have to put it in the context that less than 1% of contracts ever stood for delivery. And now people are saying, even if it's not leaving, some of it is, but even if it's staying in the eligible account, which isn't for sale, the fact of demanding numbered bars over cash settlement or rolling forward, as they always have, or just exiting the position, is ridiculously large. And it's an anomaly. Remember, the farmer uses it to hedge production. I use COMEX to hedge my inventory. The gold miner uses it to hedge his what he's pulling out of the ground. It's a way to remove risk, and that's why no one would ever stand for delivery, less than 1%. Now every month we're seeing billions and billions and billions stand for delivery. And because it's not all leaving the vault, people say, well, it doesn't mean anything. I disagree 1,000%, because if it didn't mean anything, then they would say, fine, let's just roll it forward or pay me cash. Now they're saying, nah, I want those numbered bars and I want them in my vault now. That means something, especially if they're acting on behalf of a client, which I believe they are. And I do believe that the U.S. government is in there somewhere, because nothing else truly makes sense to me, especially in the light of seeing what the world central banks are doing and lying about it and getting called out by Goldman and the World Gold Council and the IMF. So there's a lot more to it than meets the eyes. And what do I always say? And it was the title of my speech at Rick Rule's conference, price is the
Price is
ultimate
the
tool of misdirection. And in this
misdirection.
case, it's no different.
And I like that little by little behind you as well.
But it's
Uh,
true, man. And this is happening
Logarithmic
little by
decay.
little, where these things are continuing to happen. If it happened too fast, if the U.S. government yanked it all out, if China just dumped $1 trillion and bought everything, the exchanges would blow up, everything would cease. So little by little, slowly and methodically, they're draining any way they can. And, now that you're seeing this exchange in Hong Kong start to list prices for gold in another currency with same-day settlement, at the same time, you have the exchange in Dubai and Singapore that are same-day settlement in dollars. You now, for the first time, have an exchange priced in another currency that is a settlement system to challenge the Western hegemony in price setting. Things are going to change. Volatility should smooth out. real price discovery should ultimately find its way to the front. Not going to happen immediately, but these are big deals that are happening, and far more than the price would dictate. But to kind of wrap a bow on all the questions that I'd answered regarding premium, all of this accumulation is lost on the mainstream public, not to the people you and I talk to. But, most people wouldn't know a silver eagle if it fell on their head. Most people wouldn't know the difference between a Morgan and a peace dollar, or what junk silver is, or could talk to you, for that matter, with any scope of intelligence for more than 60 seconds about why to own gold and silver. That should change. And I think this next, you look at like the cracks in the seams with private equity. You think it's unusual that the head of private credit for both BlackRock and Blackstone, the two largest hedge funds that have both experienced gating and where they wouldn't let people cash out, the mass redemptions and the gating, they both retired last week, resigned. You think there's any coincidence in that? Could that portray something scary coming, whatever it is? You have everyone jammed into 10 stocks. You have the largest allocation of stocks by the public, mom and pa, in history. They're all in, and they're also all in on margin debt, the largest amount of margin debt in history, about 1.6 trillion, and the largest exposure to options. So mom and pop are all in stocks, about 10 of them, more like 7, all in on margin, where they are borrowing money off of their equity in their stock account and buying more stock, and all in on speculation with options. What could possibly go wrong? So if you see some moment that wakes people up, I have a feeling they're not going to run to treasuries. That market has its own problem. There will be a percentage of the people. If 5% of the public starts to buy gold and silver, you won't find anything. And remember, what did the chief investment officer of Morgan Stanley say? The 60-40 rule that Wall Street has followed for 50 years is dead. Sell half of your bonds and put 20% of your assets in gold and silver. Michael Hartnett, the institutional analyst for Bank of America, says no, 25%. Jeffrey Gundlach, the bond king, says that's not too much. And now BlackRock says the 60-40 rule is dead. We're selling half of our bonds and putting a good portion into commodities, largely gold. And so, the public hasn't gotten it yet. The institutionals are, and the commercials are, and the central banks are. They're the ones driving the market. They'll be positioned long before the public figures it out. And it'll probably be some horrible event that wakes people up, much like it did during the pandemic and the banking crisis, the opposite of what happened this time. As the price went crazy, everyone was selling. Those were people that had purchased during that 2021 silver squeeze and were just ready to get out.
Remember, 90% of the movement happens the last 10% of the leg.